In our postmodern age of division, anger, anxiety, and confusion, the most dangerous weapon you have is your own mind.
Take control! Question everything!
This is the Intellectual Freedom Podcast.
Welcome back, my friends, new listeners, old listeners, diehard listeners who have apparently decided the mental push-ups are worth the effort. I'm Dr. David Hopkins, your host and guide. I am a humanities professor and fellow traveler with you through the book, The Republic. And today, things get serious. Book 1 was a warm-up. Book 2 is where Plato sort of walks in the room and shuts the door, looks us kind of straight in the eyes and says, are you actually a good person? Or are you just behaving like you are one? So what do you think? Before we even get started, if you consider yourself, whether you're in your car listening or sitting at home, are you a good person? You consider yourself a good person, which I hope you do. But do you do it because it's ingrained in you, like a part of your soul, of your being? Or are you just behaving the way you have been trained to behave by society? Think about that just for 1 second. This actually goes pretty deep. It cuts to the core of who you are as a person. It cuts to the core of human civilization, really, as a whole. What are you like when nobody is watching? Sure, I mean, we all wear masks in a given day. Father or mother, husband or wife, employee, friend, brother, sister, whatever roles we play. And of course, we don't act or talk the same way to everyone all the time. You know how to speak at a job interview. It's very different than how you speak and act while out at the bar on a Friday night with your best friends, right? But really, when we get into book 2, I think figuring out who we are is key. Are you a good person, or are you acting like a good person because that is what society expects you to act like? Because in this book, book 2, suddenly the talk stops being about abstract philosophy, and when you read it, if you slow down and go deep enough, it becomes incredibly personal in book 2. So take a deep breath, stretch your brain, check your ego for a bit, because book 2 is coming for us all. So let's get going. So Glaucon poses a challenge. And his challenge to Socrates right off the bat is nobody is a just person on purpose. So the scene picks up the next day, as if you recall from book 1, the prior night didn't end with a resolution. First we looked at justice from a superficial standpoint, then a tribal standpoint, and then ended up with that cynical definition of justice where pretty much you just, all three of them, we have to throw them out the window. It's insufficient. Glaucon, especially, he's not satisfied with the polite ending in book 1. And if you recall, they sort of knocked off the discussion at the end of book 1 with sort of a shrug of the shoulder, and even Socrates admitting, heck, this whole thing about justice, it just isn't solved, not even a little bit. And the next day, Glaucon, he wants blood, intellectual blood, not physical blood, but he looks at Socrates and basically says, hey, man, don't get too comfortable. We're not done with this conversation just yet. I don't think we got anywhere near the truth about justice yet. And here's the actual line. He said, quote, Socrates, do you want to seem to have persuaded us or really persuade us? So easy translation there is, don't give us some feel-good philosophy and think you did it. Let's prove it. Go. Let's go another round. Then he drops the first grenade. Glaucon divides good into 3 types of good, and I think you'll get them. He said, well, If you consider what is quote unquote good, it's a very generic term, but Glaucon says this, look, there are things that are good in themselves, like joy or laughter or music or friendship. These things we still choose to do, even if they don't come with any special perks or rewards or benefits. There doesn't need to be a payoff for going out to a music concert, having fun and laughing and enjoying yourself, right? They're good just because they are good things. So that's the first type of good. The second type of good are things that are good for their own consequences. Now, here Glaucon argues things like going to the dentist, drinking a bitter, nasty medicine, or paying your taxes. These are, I don't know, like the broccoli of life. We don't crave them necessarily. We tolerate them because the consequences are better than the alternative. You wake up and you brush your teeth every single day, so your breath smells good and you keep your teeth healthy, right? It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. You don't laugh while you're doing that, but it's good because of the consequences. And then there's things, number 3, which are good in themselves and for their consequences. Health, learning, knowledge, courage fall in this category. This is the sweet spot, the stuff that's good on the inside and good on the outside. It feels right, and it produces a life that works. Then he hits Socrates with this. Tell me, Socrates, under which class do you place justice? And Socrates answers this confidently. Justice is the highest kind, good in itself and for what it produces. And then Glaucon says, yeah, nobody actually believes that. And here comes the famous accusation from this book. And we carry it all the way through. And Glaucon says this, people practice justice unwillingly because they lack the power to do injustice. Not because they love justice, not because they're virtuous people, but because they're scared. They're scared. Look around. Is this real? I mean, people don't always tell the truth because they're honest. They're worried about getting caught. They don't pay their taxes because they believe it's a noble, wonderful thing to do. They don't drive the speed limit just because they're righteous people. We know why they do it, right? They do it because there's cameras that exist. There's wage garnishments from the IRS. There's human resources departments exist. Social cancellation exists. Screenshots exist, and Yelp reviews exist. And so Glaucon just described modern society 2,400 years ago. Here is all he's saying. Most people aren't virtuous. They're managed. They're managed. So really, I think all of us would say on the surface, no, not me. No, I'm not managed. I'm an independent thinking good person because that is who I am. But think about it. Is that always true? Glaucon keeps going with Socrates here. He says, look, Socrates, justice isn't divine and it's not noble. It's a societal compromise. On the surface, you may say, man, this is some dark, sarcastic cynic again. Here we go again. But let's just stop. How you become a intellectual reason, critical thinking person is you have the capacity to stop and think about it. You know, do you think the speed limit is noble or sacred in some way? It exists because best case scenario, I would say injustice would be just drive however fast you want to get you as quickly as you want to get somewhere, as you do you run whatever you want to do, and that's the way it should be. Or a worse case, everyone else does literally that same thing, and people die. Pedestrians are killed, bicyclists are killed, car crashes of families and children are killed. So, what does society have to do with this idea of a speed limit? So society, in Glaucon's world, says, okay, fine. Nobody gets exactly what they want. So we can all avoid a disaster by finding some sort of a middle groundish speed limit number that lets us move around efficiently, but not in a way that people are just doing whatever they want on the road. In Glaucon's world and his idea, that is justice. Justice is a compromise. It is not some moral enlightenment. It's not something ingrained in your soul. It's just as society evolved and grew and got bigger and more sophisticated, we had to come up with a compromise, and justice is just that. And here's the quote, literally, quote, justice arose as a mean or a middle between the best and the worst. Best case, do whatever you want, and there's no consequences whatsoever. Worst case, have others do whatever they want to do to you or impact you in a negative way. So people had to come to some sort of a compromise, right? Not to do injustice and not to suffer injustice. Justice, according to Glaucon, is basically, let's all stop hurting each other because we're tired and or scared of the potential chaos that can and probably would ensue without any rules of justice. And the only way to keep a large civilization safe and functioning and efficient is, well, a compromise. We are just and noble just because that's what society has deemed, like some ingrained morality. But rather, we have to do this. We have to do this to survive and thrive as a people, as a member of the human race, as a member of a large and diverse society. This is Glaucon. And what's a modern parallel? I mean, that's every international treaty. That's every union contract. It's every HOA agreement. It's every terms of service that we scroll past online and just agree to. It's every political ceasefire, corporate ethics policy. It's not a celebration of virtue. It's a survival agreement. Justice becomes the least painful option. And Glaucon is saying people are not good, Socrates. Let's not pretend and try and fool ourselves. People are constrained, they're afraid, or in the minimum, pragmatic to understand this is what is required of us as a human race, as a civilization, to work together. And so the Ring of Gyges, the truth about who you really are. Now, it's one of the most important philosophical stories ever told in regards to justice. So you have to read this. I have to read this aloud. So Glaucon says, they say that in Lydia, a town, there was a shepherd in the service of the ruler. He finds a ring in this chasm after an earthquake, and when he turned the collet of the ring toward himself, he became invisible. Wow, what a superpower, right? What a superpower, to be invisible. Imagine yourself, you have a ring and you can make yourself invisible. Well, that's what happens here in Glaucon's story. And so what does our fearless shepherd do once he has this superpower, does he use it for good of society, of himself? Oh, not at all. So once invisible, he seduces the queen, he kills the king, and he seizes the kingdom. And here is Glaucon's devastating conclusion. No man would be just if he had the power to do injustice with impunity. The just man and the unjust man would act the same way if both possessed the ring. Glaucon cuts deep here. Glaucon says, stop the metaphysical BS of justice being some ephemeral good that humans have ingrained in their soul, Socrates. No, no, no. Humans, when given the power and the capacity, well, they are going to act unjustly if they can get away with it. And that is the ultimate kicker, if they can get away with it. Modern parallels: internet anonymity. Because nothing reveals character faster than burner accounts, anonymous comments, and private group chats. People online aren't wearing the Ring of Gyges because, well, there are millions of Rings of Gyges online, and let's face it, things can and do get really, really ugly online sometimes. People will say things to each other online that they would never say the same way when face to face. And I'm not even talking about the anonymity of the dark web, buried layers beneath the surface. I'm just talking about superficial social media stuff that all of us can see every day. What about corporate secrecy? See the image of the CEO of Enron, Cambridge Analytica, FTX, or Epstein. Every scandal begins the same way. Someone thought they were invisible and could get away with it. So I want to pose some questions to you, and I want you, while you're listening to this, just think about them. What do you do when nobody is watching? What do you say when the door is closed or that person leaves the room? Who are you when there are no rewards? What are you looking at on the internet? What are you listening to? What are you thinking? If you were a billionaire, how would you act? How would you act? Glaucon isn't accusing them. He's accusing us, all of us as humans. And Glaucon's final test raises the stakes really high that all of us can get. Glaucon says, we must strip the just man of everything except justice itself. No reputation, no praise, no rewards. Then he must be thought unjust, but remain just. The unjust man, conversely, must be given that glowing, wonderful reputation of the just. So let me summarize real quickly here. So the unjust man is going to be given success, honor, wealth, and admiration. You can say, wow, I see that all the time. The just man gets humiliation, punishment, and suffering. And you might say again, wow, I see that all the time. Why does Glaucon do this? To force Socrates to answer the only question that really matters at this moment. Is justice worth it, even when it hurts? Because we know we see it all the time. We see evil, bad, selfish, greedy people held up at the highest honor, and we see good, honest, kind, humble human beings suffer. It happens. But is justice worth it even when it hurts? And no, man. Again, tell me this isn't a 2026 problem. I don't want you to skim this, and neither does Plato. Would you do what is just no matter what, even if nobody's looking? If you were a politician elected by the people and a bill comes to the floor that will justly level healthcare costs so everyone has the opportunity to get quality healthcare, or at least reasonably high quality healthcare, but some lobbyist representing the healthcare industry knocks on your door one evening to pitch you on why this shouldn't happen, as it will dramatically hurt the profitability of these companies they represent, and in exchange for your support, just seven-figure side deal. Nobody needs to know about it, or maybe a little juicy campaign contribution gets dropped into your campaign fund, by just supporting the industry. As after all, as they pitch you, the industry has the overall health of America as its goal. Politicians know how to spin that crap. Well, would you, as the politician, act ethically, morally, for the good of the voters? Or would you do something that helps ensure that you have wealth for your entire life, and your family has generational wealth to impact your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids? I mean, come on, it's a real question. And we, the angry voters, myself included in this group, often get ticked about how morally bankrupt and unjust our politicians are. But Glaucon sort of says, hey, wait a minute with your anger. Yeah, sure, you can have the anger now because you don't have the power. You don't have the ring. You don't have the ring of invisibility. You don't have that. And sure, yeah, they're bad, no doubt. But you and I, we're so certain we would say, no, I would do the good, the will of the people. We any better? Really? Hard to say, right? Until you'd find yourself in that boat. It's easy to draw the conclusion when you're not in that group. It would be really hard if you were in that group, if you held the ring of invisibility, right? I mean, those greedy billionaires that we constantly hear people say, they need to pay more. There should never be a billionaire at all. Well, what if you were the billionaire? Would you still be singing that same song and dance? That's the point of Glaucon. That stings a little when we read it carefully, if we're going to be truly honest with ourselves. And so to me, Glaucon sort of hits my sensibilities hard, but our friend Socrates refuses to answer directly and wants to divert the argument just a bit, because he thinks that Glaucon's sort of missing the point here. So he says, let's first find justice in the city, and afterwards we'll get deeper into the individual. Why? Because as Socrates says, a city comes into being because each of us is not self-sufficient, and that's very true. I mean, there might be a few people out there in the middle of nowhere that can live their entire life completely devoid of any sort of material help from any other human being, but come on now, that's very, very few, very far between. So Socrates kind of makes a good point here. So, Socrates is really, if I try to translate the whole thing, it's we're shaped by the world we live in. We can't live alone. We need each other, and our culture and our civilization, it is a reflection of where we are at. I couldn't help but think here where we're at in our society and that thing, social media and our digital world. I sort of want to sidebar here, just one moment. As when Socrates says we're shaped by our world, in our postmodern existence, we are shaped as much by our digital world as the real world. Something Socrates just, I mean, there would have been no way that he could even fathom that. And, so modern parallels, social media, platforms, they reward outrage. This yields more outrage. They reward vanity, yields more vanity. They reward tribalism, and that yields more tribalism. Socrates would say that's not accident, that's architecture. Sometimes we scroll and scroll and scroll and don't stop to ponder what our culture is feeding our brain every day. Imagine just for 1 second, if you just slowed down so much when you're online that you would write up a little summary of what every single short video you stopped the scroll on, every little meme or post or comment, write down the meaning of what you just saw or watched. I think we would be shocked how superficially inane, ridiculous, depraved, anger-riddled, the things we expose ourselves, and yet we don't stop to wonder why so many are angry, frustrated, fearful, anxious all of the time. Well, Socrates sort of gives us something we all need to consider, and that's education. The beginning is the most important part of the work, as Socrates said, meaning if you form children poorly, you're going to form adults badly. My goodness. We just flat out suck. I mean, suck in our modern world in fostering our kids' independent thinking and growth. Check the modern world. We teach test taking, credential chasing, anxiety, performance. We tie learning and education to making $1 someday in an office cube or some other way. We do an exponentially worse job of teaching character, truthfulness, self-wisdom, or self-control, wisdom, open-mindedness, humility, kindness. The result surprises no one, right? I mean, we're churning out students we create. Yet we blame the kids. We blame the kids. Oh, these Gen Alphas, these Gen Zers, boy, they are so messed up. We're the ones that created this system. We propagate it. We continue to support it. Who are the messed up ones, really? Us that were charged with educating the kids? Or the kids themselves learning what they were educated on? Just something to think about there. But Socrates doesn't blame the citizens. He blames systems. He's saying you can't produce just people in an unjust culture. And that's the entire modern crisis, right? Well, I think I already beat on that dead horse. Our politicians are, how do I say it clearly? Despicable, evil, low-level thinkers. I hope I'm being clear. I've said it so many times. Dedicated an entire podcast not too long ago, number 137, if you want to go back. I don't believe smart people can be a politician. I just don't. I don't think just and ethical people can be good politicians today. They'll become the 30, 40-year politicians, but they won't be good ones. Any more than someone who hates math is going to become an AI engineer. So we've fostered a culture of corruption in DC. So guess who we get as politicians in DC? Corrupt humans. They stay 40, 50 years. They'll get in their 80s and they will not go away. Chuck Schumer, Grassley, some of these guys that can barely talk and walk anymore, they will not leave. Plato nails it. So the real question, back to the real question. Who are you without the Ring of Gyges? Book 2 corners us, not academically, but existentially. Plato's asking, are you moral or monitored? Are you principled or are you just polite? Do you love justice or merely do you fear the consequences from societal backlash? Because Glaucon's challenge is maybe the most honest thing in book 2. We have to prove that justice is desirable for itself. Man, this is a hard challenge for Socrates to prove. Are humans, by their nature, ingrained in their soul, just? Or are they just because they want praise and safety and approval and comfort and optics? Because for Plato, justice creates something inside of you. Plato calls that something the well-ordered soul. And my friends, this is the payoff. That payoff may not make you rich. In fact, you may end up poor, a nobody, an average person from a societal standpoint, unnoticed. Definitely not a famous TikTok influencer, but rather having the peace of a well-ordered soul, which is true. Which is true. Look, I don't have the answer for you. This is for you to ponder, wrestle with. That is what Socrates, through the voice of Plato, would want you to have, this well-ordered soul. But as you form who you are as a human and you strive to walk it out, this is, in essence, very, very important. Would you trade wealth, fame, comfort for a well-ordered soul? It's a big question. It's a very big question for you to think about. Right now, at the sound of my voice, if I could transfer $1 billion into your bank account, at the snap of my fingers, you're a billionaire. But you're not going to have a well-ordered soul. Would you do it? In full transparency, for me, I'd probably try and negotiate my way through that. Well, maybe I'll take the $1 billion, but no. What I'm going to do once I get it is I'm going to share it. I'm going to give it. I'm going to help the homeless and the poor and countries in need and this and this and this. Yeah, I'd negotiate that out, right? But let's say you don't get to negotiate it out. You get to live a well-ordered life. You are kind, humble, at peace. You're a good person. You are a just person according to Socrates. Or are you going to take the $1 billion and be like Glaucon says humans are? It's a big question. So here's where we land. Book 2 isn't asking you to admire or admonish anything here. It's asking you to examine yourself. Who am I when no one sees me? Do I do the right thing all the time because it's the right thing to do? Or do I do the right thing because I'm sort of embarrassed or afraid of getting caught? If culture shapes character, am I shaping culture back? Or am I sleepwalking through someone else's design? Book 2 forces us into a mirror we usually just avoid or don't pay any attention to. And the truth is, justice isn't a law. It's a lifestyle. It's not performative. It's not something you perform. It's something you become. So as we leave today, let me say this. If this book feels uncomfortable and you struggled with it a little bit, if you're trying to read along with us, that's a good thing. If you think of what you would be when no one's watching, are you the same person? And that stings a little bit. Good. Makes you rethink yourself. Even better. That discomfort in this book, that's why it's such a powerful book. It's not failure. It's your mind lifting its next weight. And we're just getting started. So I love book 2. I love book 2. I think it takes us to a place that we just often don't go in society. We just don't invest time in it. And what is justice? We are around justice all the time. You see the things in the news, right? You see the things with immigration and ICE and attacks on Venezuela and Iran and their dictator and Greenland and this and that and the other. I mean, it's all around us. And you hear the word justice, 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 justice thrown around all the time. But we very rarely stop to really think about what it actually means. So I know you get tired of hearing me say it, but internalize it because it does matter. It does matter what you think. It's a powerful way to sharpen yourself. So thank you so much for listening. And if you're here, you are officially not average if you made it through this one. This was a dense one. Average minds don't read Plato. Average minds don't wrestle with the concept of justice. And average minds don't sit voluntarily in discomfort or listen voluntarily in discomfort. But you just did it if you're still listening. So share this episode. Get one other person to read The Republic with you. Let's keep building this thing together. Notice we really don't have any clean, perfect solutions, even clear proposals yet. We're going to get there. Our guy Socrates is still slogging through the messiness with his crew and have pulled him into conversation. And that's about as real world as you can get sometimes. It's complicated. It's hard. And the solutions still seem a long way off. But hey, don't want to break the news. We're going to get there eventually. So let's keep going. Until the next time, stay curious. And I'll see you in book number 3.